So the next issue we're going to take on is the question of assistance in dying. There seems to be a logical and inevitable corollary between the fact that we're living longer and longer and questions about its end. There's been a great development in Canada, and that is the province of Quebec has just legislated to legalize assistance in dying. This leaves open the question about what's going to happen to the rest of us in the country, and for the purposes of complete transparency, I think many of you know that Christopher Plummer and I are the lead patrons for assistance in dying here in Canada. So to pick up this conversation and give us a sense of what's going to happen next in the ROC, the rest of Canada, I'd like to return to the stage Wanda Morris, who's the executive director. Yeah. And is Richard McDonald with you?
Richard is here today.
Richard's in the audience? All right, perhaps we'll point him out when you're done.
2 years ago, I stood on the stage at this conference and told you about Sue Rodriguez. In 1993, Sue Rodriguez took her case to the Supreme Court of Canada, and she asked, "Who owns my life? Who owns my life?" And in a 5-4 split decision, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled against her, ruled that she could not have the compassionate assistance to die that she sought. In 2011, this woman, Gloria Taylor, brought a similar case forward. She brought it to the Supreme Court of British Columbia. She said, "How is it that the person in the hospital bed next to mine can be actively removed from life support, but I cannot have compassionate assistance to die?" And in 2012, when I was here at this conference, the Supreme Court of British Columbia ruled in Gloria Taylor's favor, ruled that the law prohibiting assistance to die was unconstitutional, violated the Charter, and granted Gloria, and indeed all Canadians suffering unbearably at end of life, the choice to have assistance to die. That decision was appealed to the BC Court of Appeal, and last year was overturned. It was overturned not on a technicality, but on a technical point, the point of stare decisis, the idea that what the Supreme Court of Canada has ruled, no lower court can overturn. Only the Supreme Court of Canada can overturn its own ruling. And they have agreed to look at it again. October 14th of this year, there is a one-day hearing scheduled at the Supreme Court of Canada to once again hear the case for the right to die with dignity. But that is not all. In the province of Quebec, this woman, Véronique Yvon, is asking, she was the Minister of Health in the former government of Quebec, was asking, representing a party, a select committee of all the parties in that province, asking to legislate, among other things, the right for medical assistance to die. A commission developed a report which became an act, Bill 52, an act respecting end-of-life care, introduced into the National Assembly in June of 2013 to a standing ovation and passed into law earlier this month. And will be legalized if it's not challenged by the end of 2015. They've forecast at most an 18-month period, and the question is, will then the federal government challenge? The law is very clear. If there is a challenge between the federal criminal code and the provincial health code, the federal criminal code will triumph, but only if challenged. At this point, what we know is that the federal government is reviewing reviewing the legislation. They have not announced whether or not they will challenge. There are 2 individuals who are seeking an injunction, and we do not know whether they whether that will be heard in court. So we wait. But as things stand, Quebec will have legalized end-of-life choice, assisted dying, by the end of 2015. And Quebec isn't the only place that this is happening. We also have a private member's bill coming forward. We have these 2 individuals, are 2 members of parliament with visible physical disabilities. Conservative Stephen Fletcher, NDP Manon Perrot, have introduced 2 private members' bills, one legalizing medically assisted dying, and the second one providing for a commission and oversight to make sure that this is done safely. So what do I mean by medical aid in dying? The different legislative and court actions have defined it slightly differently, but essentially this is from the Quebec bill. It's a treatment consisting of the administration of drugs or substances by a physician to a person, and in Quebec defined at the end of life, at that person's request, at that person's repeated request, to relieve their suffering and clearly resulting in their death. We are not talking about just throwing the doors open here and providing something for every depressed teenager or every lonely senior who is, perhaps thinking they might want an option. These are the types of safeguards that are in place. First of all, some very rigorous conditions. And the most important word on this slide is at the end of the 5th condition, the word "and." All of these must be true for an individual in Quebec to have assistance to die. So the residency, the age, the serious and irrevocable nature of the illness or disease. And then additional safeguards in place in terms of competency, in terms of information, and also additional safeguards in terms of oversight. In the Quebec case, a commission looking after things. So what we know is that law reform looks like it is coming, and whether it comes through the courts or through the provincial or the federal legislature, it is on its way with strict criteria and significant safeguards. So the question you might be asking is, well, why don't we have it yet? If evidence could vote, we would have medically assisted dying in Canada today. We have had the All-Party Committee in Quebec with their in-depth review. We had Justice Smith in BC looking at an unprecedented amount of evidence and studies. The Royal Society of Canada had an expert panel studying this. The evidence has all supported the conclusion that in other jurisdictions around the world where this happens, we can both protect our weak and vulnerable and provide a compassionate option to those who suffer. And if public opinion mattered, we would have assisted dying. No matter how you slice and dice it, whether by age, by region, by political affiliation, by income level, by education, a majority of individuals support the right for Canadians to have assisted dying. But what we see is scare tactics, misleading information, outright lies, and really flawed logic. And I'm just quickly dipping into my folder of nonsense that is sometimes put out there. As one of my colleagues said, sometimes you just need to give the other side a microphone. This is Dr. Catherine Ferrier.
So thank you all for coming. I've been told that a lot of older people in the Netherlands are actually moving into Germany. Went to move into a nursing home because they're afraid that somebody will euthanize them without asking them.
Yeah, she really did say that. And I thought that Catholics weren't allowed to lie. But I was naive. I know the sound quality wasn't great. She said, I've been told that seriously, I've been told that people in the Netherlands are actually moving to Germany because they're scared somebody will euthanize them without asking them. Well, and maybe you're thinking, well, yeah, maybe that's true. Okay, well, here is Quebec's study, the Dying with Dignity report, almost 200 pages. The results of exhaustive consultation with experts and travel to the countries where this is legal, including 21 meetings. And what did they find? They specifically address this allegation. It's on page 150 of the report, which you can download from our website. And this is what the Quebec Society report says. Certain allegations must be refuted. There is absolutely no basis for the following. that seniors will leave the Netherlands to go to Germany because they're afraid of being euthanized against their will. I wish that I had more time because I have some other equally juicy goodies in that same folder. But what I really want to leave you with is don't take my word for this. This is just too important. Read the evidence. Go to the primary sources. If you're worried about what the legislation would say, if it would have sufficient safeguards, read the legislation. You can download it from our website. Look at the empirical evidence. Look at the peer-reviewed studies. And bear in mind the quality of the evidence that you're hearing. What you will notice is that so much of what is put forward as legitimate argument against assisted dying is at the base of the pyramid. It is anecdotal evidence. It is unsupported by studies or peer-reviewed research. And what we see is that the higher we go up the pyramid for credible evidence that's tested by the courts, by the parliamentary committees, is concluding that this is safe and that we should have it. So here's two great resources. Our website, Dying with Dignity, we have over 2,000 pages indexed by Google on our website. And Dalhousie University, Professor Jocelyn Downey's fabulous academic working in this area, and her work is on the End-of-Life Law Policy website. And Dick MacDonald, who is here today, I'm not sure, there he is, right there, a living legend. He is with a group called Final Exit Network in the US. He's also volunteered with us here in Canada, has been present as a doctor at the deaths of over 200 individuals who were dying and sought a peaceful and gentle death. Help us stop this needless suffering. If you want to suffer, fill your boots. We're not a pro-death movement, we are a pro-choice movement. But if you think that Canadians should have a compassionate option, yes, we have choices today, but those choices are grim. And I don't think anyone should have to starve themselves or drive their wheelchair into a lake if they want compassionate assistance to die. On our homepage, you'll find our petition that says all of Canada deserves what Quebec has just passed. And we're so grateful for the support of our patrons and the generosity of Moses. If we had 100 more like him, we would have this today. So please join us. As Woody Allen said, I'm not afraid to die. I just don't want to be there when it happens. Death is not like Hollywood. Unfortunately, we will all die, and some of us will die grimly. The suffering that you stop, that you avoid, may be your own.